Hi, I wonder how long can COVID-19 survive on packages and food and surfaces that could be contaminated? And are there any conditions that can kill this virus faster? For example, exposure to higher temperatures or UV or chemicals. Thank you.
Hi, this is Al from Cornell's Dairy Extension. Thank you very much for submitting this question. I'll start by emphasizing that the virus that causes COVID-19 is not a foodborne virus. If you look at official statements from agencies like WHO, CDC, FDA, European Food Safety Authority, they're all saying that there is no evidence to show transmission of this virus through food. There's also some scientific reasoning behind why this virus is not transmitted through food. If you think about viruses, any virus needs a living cell in order to exist, in order to replicate and spread. As soon as they are outside of the host, as soon as they are outside of the cell, they cannot grow. They can only be inactivated and reduced in numbers. Now, some viruses have a special structure where they have this protein coat on the outside that makes them more resistant to environmental conditions and allows them to survive outside of the host for longer. A good example would be all foodborne viruses. For example, norovirus, hepatitis A. All foodborne viruses have this protein layer that allows them to survive in food and other environments for longer. On the other side, the virus that causes COVID-19 or any other coronavirus don't have this protein layer. Instead, they have this fat layer, which is much more sensitive to environmental conditions and is the reason why these viruses are inactivated outside of the host at a very fast rate. In some of the recent studies, they showed this fast rate of inactivation specifically for the virus that causes COVID-19. They showed that the numbers of active virus are reduced by half every 3 to 7 hours on surfaces like cardboard, plastic, and stainless steel. They showed in water droplets that the inactivation rate is even faster. It's reduced by half every single hour. So all these results are telling us that this virus will remain active on food and food packaging for only a short amount of time, not nearly enough to represent a serious risk. This risk is even less significant when you compare it to the risk associated with the main mode of transmission. And this would be transmission through respiratory droplets during close person-to-person contact and interaction. Here I would emphasize that the same studies I just mentioned also talk about total time the virus survived on these surfaces. They say it survived 1, 2, even 3 days on these surfaces. And this is something that media really picked up. I would be very careful about interpretation of these results just because the total time the virus can survive on surfaces very much depends on how much virus you put on that surface in the first place. So if you put more virus on the surface, it's going to take longer for it to be inactivated all the way. And these studies put a lot of virus on the surfaces, much more than we would expect in a normal contamination event. And let me tell you that these contamination events are actually not that common. Even though it seems like a lot of people are touching the food that we are buying and eating, it's actually not so. People are not coughing and sneezing uncontrollably on our food, especially since we introduced the face coverings. Individual food items are also not touched by a lot of people. And those few that are, there's actually not a lot of contamination being transferred during this contact. If you think about this chain where it goes from infected person's face to their hands, to food and food packaging, and then from that food and food packaging to your hands and your face. So a long chain, and in each step, there's only a fraction of this viral contamination that can be transferred. So this low transfer rate, together with this high inactivation rate, makes this risk almost non-existent. But I would still recommend, not touching your face washing your hands when you come back from shopping, when you come home. It is good practice to wash your hands, and this is something that was established a long time ago and goes beyond just controlling the risk of COVID-19. So we said that the virus that causes COVID-19 and any other coronavirus will be inactivated outside of the host at a very fast rate. So to address the second part of the question, can the virus be inactivated even faster? So yeah, there are studies that are shown to that conditions and devices and chemicals can inactivate the virus even faster. For example, UV, high temperature, extremely high or extremely low humidity, and also some chemicals were shown to inactivate the virus at a much faster rate. But when it comes to food, we really don't have to rely on these special conditions and procedures in order to inactivate the virus. The virus is very sensitive and is inactivated at a fast enough rate in any condition. I would even say that we don't recommend using some of these devices and chemicals just because they can represent a hazard to people and should actually be used by trained professionals. So again, virus is inactivated at a fast enough rate in any condition, and there is no need for special procedures or chemicals. I see this as similar as when you're late for school or you're late for work and your friend offers you a ride. You're not really thinking about how fast the car is, or should I go with another friend because their car is faster. Any car will get you there fast enough. It doesn't matter if you're there in 20 minutes or 25, it's all fast enough. And similar is with food, The virus is very sensitive and is inactivated at a fast rate in any condition. Here I have to mention freezing. We get a lot of questions about freezing, just because we know that freezing will slow down the inactivation rate. And the key to remember with frozen food and freezing your own food at home is that the food, before you freeze it, is already safe. And the process of storing in the freezer and thawing will make the food even safer. Just because freezing is not gonna prevent the inactivation, it's only gonna slow it down. During thawing, as the temperature of the food goes up, so does the inactivation rate of the virus. So food, after you take it out of the freezer, is even more safe than when you put it in. And it was already safe to eat it before you put it in the freezer in the first place. So to finish, I would say that food and food packaging represents only a theoretical risk when it comes to COVID-19. The main risk you should be thinking about and doing your best to address is this person-to-person transmission of the virus. So make sure you limit that social interaction, keep your distance and wear face coverings whenever you are interacting with others. You should also not touch your face, wash your hands with warm water, soap for at least 20 seconds, and do that as frequently as possible. So I hope my answers further strengthen your trust in our food supply and gives you useful information about how to protect yourself and people around you. So with this, I would say thank you very much and stay safe.